feared Janjaweed militia. The army has seized control in a coup and dissolved a civilian-led transitional government. We're going to bring in now U.S. Special Envoy to Sudan, Tom Perriello, for more. He is just back from peace talks in Switzerland. Welcome to Here and Now. The talks ended without a lot of progress toward a ceasefire. Sudan's army didn't even take part, but there was an agreement to open more routes to get desperately needed humanitarian aid into the country. How has that progressed?
Well, it's already happening. We were able to focus on 2 of the 3 routes that have left 1 million people in starvation and 20 million facing acute hunger. It's just hard to get your head around the sheer scale of suffering. The western route from Adre into some of the famine-stricken parts of Darfur, and the eastern route across the Daba Road. We're working on one through Sennar State. So we have people that have not had access to emergency food and medicine for 4 months or longer. So getting the promises from the RSF and the Army to be able to expedite that crossing has been crucial. We have over 6 million pounds of food and relief that's gone in. But between some backsliding and the rains, we will continue to have this as a day-to-day, very precarious effort. And we need to be scaling up very rapidly to be able to meet the emergency needs on the ground.
When you were in Switzerland, you met with a group of 15 Sudanese women. Tell us why they were there and what they wanted to tell you.
Well, Secretary Blinken and the White House were very eager for us to go forward with the talks and to find a way to be engaging directly with Sudanese civilians, particularly women who have suffered the worst atrocities of this war. They came as both advisors and policy experts with experience in issues related to gender and security, as well as community advocates. And they were able, I think, to really center the priorities of the mediators back on the people. We were able to have them editing the code of conduct that was coming together for the Rapid Support Forces, the first one command directive they've committed to. And, we will continue to listen to particularly women and youth who've been such a big part of trying to protect their neighbors one community at a time. That includes on the humanitarian access side, where mutual aid efforts of just unbelievable courage continue to be the main source of food and medicine for many of those in harm's way, including pregnant women with no access to prenatal care or pregnancy care. And just that courage is the source of hope and the source of urgency for all of us.
Do you remember one conversation that you might have had or one message that came through in a particular conversation with these women?
One of the ones was looking at these codes of conduct, which we tend to, start by pulling it off the shelf of general best practices for both armies and militias, and then having them be able to feed in on the specific priorities of issues like the exploitation and harassment at crossings, cross-line border adjustments. And these are, of course, the women and youth who rose up to push off the Bashir government. Many of those NCP actors are the ones that are trying to crawl back into power by extending the war and undermining President Burhan's ability to come to the talks. And I think one of the things that we've helped to do is to draw to the surface those that are trying to find a path to peace and those that are determined to try to continue this war and gain more power at the expense of the suffering of the Sudanese people.
The UN says that it's seen credible evidence the United Arab Emirates is sending weapons to the rebel RSF force. That's a charge the UAE has repeatedly denied. Is the U.S. considering any additional consequences for countries that are fueling this conflict?
We absolutely are looking at that. That's included sanctions already on the RSF for its atrocities and companies that are aiding and abetting in those atrocities, including some that are based in the UAE. We see more and more negative external actors piling on and fueling this crisis. And I think part of what we tried to do with the ALPS group was to say we need external partners to be partners in peace, partners in humanitarian relief, and not bringing more guns into the country. That's been the clear message of the Sudanese people.
I wonder if you've heard about this American rapper Macklemore, who has canceled a performance in Dubai, the largest city in the United Arab Emirates, because of its support for the rebels in the war in Sudan. He noted the major humanitarian disaster that you've been talking about. When someone in popular culture like that puts a spotlight on a place that is receded from the headlines, does that help your cause?
Well, most importantly, it helps the Sudanese people who I think felt so seen by that action. We heard it reverberating through so many of the Sudanese civilian and civil society efforts that this person had taken that, small personal sacrifice to shine a light on the suffering inside of Sudan. People in Sudan feel like the world has not seen their suffering, their starvation, the use of starvation and rape as a weapon of war. And all they want is Sudanese control over their democratic and inclusive future. And the Sudanese people are very clear about that. And we want to continue to stand with them in that effort.
All right. Thank you very much. U.S. Special Envoy to Sudan, Tom Perriello. Thank you again.
Thank you, Lisa.
Here and Now is a production of NPR and WBUR. I'm Lisa Mullins in Boston.
And I'm Deepa Fernandez in Alameda, California. It's Here and Now.
Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and Rhodes Scholar, a not-for-profit educational travel organization offering adventures for adults in more than 100 countries. Learn more at ROAD
She's here.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. The 2 p.m. session of Roanoke City Council is hereby called to order, and I'll ask our clerk, Ms. Susan McCoy, to please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez-Jones.
Here.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cobb.
Here.
Ms. White Boyd.
Here.
Mr. Velosin.
Here.
Sorry. Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Here.
And Mayor Lee.
Here, and a quorum is present. Today, our invocation will be delivered by the Reverend Joanna Pastor of the Green Memorial United Methodist Church. Reverend, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And what we'll do is, I want to let everybody know that you're going to be do our invocation, and following you, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everybody stand, please?
Wonderful. Good afternoon. I bring greetings from the folks at Green Memorial. We are grateful for your work. We recently merged with Trinity United Methodist, and it was a lot of your work, the rezoning work, that made that possible. So we are thankful for your work day in and day out to problem solve, to work for inclusion, and create a better and more whole community. So thank you for your tireless work. It has impacts in our churches and our neighborhoods all across our city. So I invite all of us gathered here and those who are joining online, if they're there, to find themselves in a posture of prayer. Holy One, Creator and Preserver of all humankind, we pause in the midst of this day for a moment to be keenly aware of love that has been with us, aware of hope that has shaped us, aware of peace that grounds us. We come and offer gratitude for the good gifts from you. We also pause and remember to hold each other in your light. For those who weep and watch and wait this day, for the least, the lost, and the lonely, for all of those who show up and work around the clock to make our community what it is, for fire, police, and rescue, for doctors and nurses and staff and care facilities and hospitals, for sanitation workers and mental health professionals, for teachers and administrations. We pray for each of our city employees, for their dedicated work to our neighborhoods and lives. Remind us again your call to unity above division, your call to be good neighbors to each and every one. As fear and doubt are pervasive, call us again to a broader vision, a trust in your work of justice. Leave us dissatisfied with places of community hurt. Evoke in us a new way when we hear of racism, xenophobia, ableism, homophobia, and fear. Renew in us each day a work to your beloved community, to a world where no child is hungry or scared, where each person is known with dignity, where peace persists, and we live together in a kinship of humanity. Guide the work in this time and each and every day to let it be so. We pray together. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joanna. Stephanie, can you make the motion? First order of business this afternoon will be the certification of the closed meeting.
I move with respect to any closed meeting just concluded that each member of City Council in attendance certify to the best of his or her knowledge that 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in any motion by which any closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered by the members of council in attendance.
Second.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Sanchez-Jones. Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb,
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Volleson,
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds,
Aye.
and Mayor Lee.
Aye, and thank you. And welcome again to our afternoon session today. The Council of Roanoke is seeking applications for various vacancies on council-appointed authorities, boards, committees, and commissions. And as we always say, we encourage any of you citizens that are looking in on RVTV or those in the audience, if you want to serve on a board or commission, we encourage you to do that. That's so important for us to have our citizens to come forward, and there's a need. There's a need in many of our commissions and committees, and we want you to help us govern this 8-time All-American city. So it's easy to do. All you need to do is access the city's webpage at www.roanokeva.gov to complete an online application, or you can call the clerk's office and they'll walk you through the process. So it's very easy, and we encourage you to apply and to be a part of that. All right, we're now down to item number 2 on my agenda this afternoon, and that's presentations and acknowledgments. And I'm going to call on our city manager, Ms. Lydia Patton, to introduce the presentation.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council, I would like to call our Chief of Police to the podium, Chief Scott Booth, to recognize.
That's all right.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor,
Hey, Chief.
Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council, Dr. Patton. It's great to be here. I'd like to call some folks up front, please. Sergeant Sloan, Officer Gillum, and Officer Camper could not be with us today. She's still recovering.
Okay.
So I believe most of you all remember what we went through in December of last year, when there was a gentleman that had killed his father in southeast Roanoke, and he was encountered in northwest Roanoke at Melrose Towers. And as soon as one of our officers encountered him, he shot her twice.
Jesus.
Both of these officers here were on scene and were able to return fire and render the scene safe, as well as help Officer Camper recover from her injuries. We are very lucky that both of these gentlemen are unharmed, and Officer Camper, while recovering slowly, is recovering. The other night, we were lucky enough for them to be honored by the Virginia Associations of Chiefs of Police with the prestigious Valor Award. During that ceremony, the governor spoke and talked to everyone about their heroic deeds. So we, Dr. Patton, just wanted them to be brought before you all today to be recognized. So thank you for allowing us this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another honor, Mayor, if I may, if the gentleman will stay there, because we'll get pictures after. Please join me in congratulating Chief Scott Booth as he begins his term as president of the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police. The executive board comprised of 5 at-large committee members, 3 vice presidents, the president, and the immediate past president meets approximately 6 times each year to steer the association's business, address crucial law enforcement issues. As president, Chief Booth will lead these discussions, shape strategic initiatives, and guide the association in its mission to enhance the standards and effectiveness of law enforcement in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Your leadership will be instrumental in navigating the challenges and opportunities ahead. We are confident that your dedication, Chief Booth, and vision will significantly contribute to the VACP's continued success and impact. Best wishes for a fruitful and influential term. Let's give them all a round of applause.
Thank you, Dr. Patton. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Would you like pictures? Pictures?
Any member, yeah, pictures, photo op,
Come on
photo
up,
op.
guys.
Photo op. Okay.
Always do photo op. Chief, you get in the middle.
No, this doesn't even make me look skinny.
All right. Mayor Lee, if I could have you take a slight step to your right.
I was saying you might need to step over.
There we go. There we go. You're good. You're good. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and one more. Don't move yet. Yep. Yep. We'll go both ways. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Thank you,
want to make
Joe.
sure that
Congratulations.
council will have, if the council has any comments that they want to make to these heroic officers here, the work they've done. Vice Mayor?
I had the good fortune of talking to the chief and these two officers, what are y'all doing today?
He called it
You going
vice
back a
mayor.
little bit. I just called Vice Mayor. You just said, oh.
I'm sorry.
You've been Vice Mayor long enough to do that.
Please forgive me. I want you to know, I had the opportunity to meet with these two officers and the chief briefly. I did not know at the time why they were here, but that Melrose Towers is across the street from where my father grew up, and I know that neighborhood really well. For anyone to be an officer today takes a very special kind of individual. And I know the chief was well aware of that, but thanks to you all particularly for your willingness to be that. Just because you get it recognized doesn't mean you can go somewhere else and do something else. You got to keep on doing this. And we are fortunate to have had, during my whole lifetime in Roanoke, a great police force and young men and women who make it great, and we are totally dependent on you all so many of the times. So thank you so very much for a job well done, and please pass along to the officer who was injured our appreciation as well, Chief.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
It's okay, Vice Mayor.
Well, I remember that day because I was just leaving my chaplaincy work at Hermitage, Roanoke, which is around the corner, and I saw police presence and caution tape already up. And I not only want to commend you all for everything that you did that day, and I'm so grateful that Officer Camper is healing. But I wanted to say, Chief Booth, and to everyone, your consistent presence there from the beginning to the very end was a real testament to your commitment to seeing that everything is done appropriately. I appreciate how you evaluated after that to see what was done well and what could be done differently and better. And again, that reflects your commitment to being the best department that you can be. So thank you all very much for that. And I just see that your presence and your commitment unfold in every situation, and that just to know that that's consistent, not only as a reflection of your professionalism, but your dedication to this work that you're called to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Let me just thank you, men, for your work, police department. Myself, I'm a 35-year veteran of the Department of Corrections, probation and parole. So we work closely, have worked, and are working closely with y'all. But if no one else can, I can appreciate what you all do, because when people are moving out of the way and bullets are flying and everything, they're running from it, but you all are going to it. And so that takes a special person. And you put your lives on the line each day. And we're so thankful for what you do. And you see a lot of negative stuff going on in a lot of communities about police and the community. But I'm so appreciative under Chief Booth's leadership that we're developing relationships with people in our community. So thank you all so much for what you're doing. We're very proud of you. And I just want you all to know that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, man.
Thank you all. Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, are we now down to hearing of citizens?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right, now, excuse me. We're now down to hearing of citizens upon public matters. City Council sets this time as a priority for citizens to be heard. All matters will be referred to the city manager for a response, a recommendation, or her report to council as she may deem appropriate. But this is the time we set aside to hear from citizens. And at this time, I'm going to ask the clerk, do we have any citizens that signed up?
Yes, we do. We have 3 citizens.
Can you call them in the order that they signed up, please?
Yes, I will. Martin Trussell, followed by Brian McConnell. And the last speaker will be Frida Cathcart, and they have 5 minutes each.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I thought it was 3, so I'm going to be finished.
Yes.
You don't have to take it all.
I'm going to get through this. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, and City Manager, I appreciate the chance to be here today. My name's Marty Trussell. I live at 2037 Carter Road. That's in the Raleigh Court neighborhood, and I'm a founding member of Pedal Safe ROA. Bicycle Safety Advocacy Group here in Roanoke. My wife Nancy and I moved here from Kansas City in 2015, so I know something about Kansas, because we had good experiences here when we'd been through the area before. We paid for our own move, and we brought our relatively high-paying jobs with us. And now we're both retired. Nancy volunteers most every day at the Ram House and Hurt Park Elementary. I work mornings at the Kirk YMCA up the street here. I'm also dedicated to doing my personal climate action plan, which involves riding my e-bike to work and other short trips around town. Since June of last year, I've logged over 1,800 miles in short trips that have otherwise involved a car. And thus, I've reduced my CO2 emissions by 450 kilograms, which is about what I would spend in an airplane going back to Kansas City. So I've got a free trip coming up, I guess. I've also reduced wear and tear on city streets, improved my fitness a little bit, eliminated the need for 190 square foot of paved space to be waiting for me everywhere I go in the city. And still, I hesitate to use my bike for quick trips to my grocery store at Towers due to the lack of protected bike lanes and busy route. Likewise, in my commute to the Y can get a little stressful sometimes because of the lack of bike lanes along Grandin Road and down Campbell here to downtown. So enough about me. I'm here today to share with the City Council the latest People for Bikes annual city ratings, a data-driven program to evaluate, identify, compare more than 1,500 cities for bicycling. This year, Roanoke scored a city rating of 30 out of a possible 100. So making it 667th in the nation, 95th in the South region, 22nd in Virginia. So I'm here to say let's raise our score to at least 50 over the next 5 years. 50 has become the level, is considered the level at which the general population, including families, begin to think about biking as a safe form of transportation, meaning that they'll consider riding a bike for short errands, to get to work, to get to school, go to the Greenway, and shops, restaurants, that sort of thing. 183 cities have already scored 50 or higher, and Roanoke can too, by strategically executing plans that we already have in place, such as the City Plan 2040, the Climate Action Plan, Vision Zero, and Safe Streets for All. Pedal Safe members like me and Tom back here have a wealth of experience and information. We're happy to assist with participating in advisory committees, public engagement efforts, to help target projects that have maximum impact on creating safer and more complete streets for raising that city score. And here's a hint. Slower speeds and protected bike lanes have the most impact on getting that score up to 50 or above. So I appreciate the opportunity to present this information. Let's raise the score to 50 and join other Virginia cities like Arlington and Cape Charles that have already achieved that score. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Lees, City Council members, Dr. Patton. Thanks once again for affording me the opportunity to share this installment of my own personal narrative within the context of a broader, overarching one of civic health, happiness, and well-being. 10 years ago, beginning just about this time of season, I began working with former city manager Chris Morrell to host a satellite classroom here in Roanoke for the launch of MIT's inaugural U-Lab. The underlying theme of that initial free online course, as moderated by senior lecturer Otto Scharmer, was leading from the emerging future, from ego to ecosystem economies. That same work, fortunately, continues today. I'm here to share the good news for me of being in a position to launch a current U-Lab again, host that free online course here in Roanoke. There is so much creative potential in the structure, underlying structure, and resources, frankly, that accompany the coursework, which will effectively run from it. The course will start September 12th and run all the way through May, but in two, for me, exciting segments, because where U-Lab 1X starts here in the fall, in the spring semester is a U-Lab 2X, which involves a prototyping of another online course that I've been working on over this 10-year period for about the last 7 or 8 years. And this last spring semester, we successfully initiated the activation of that course through a business entity by the name of ecoregen.org. And ecoregen.org is set up on the basis of being a not-for-profit. We observe the working model of a not-for-profit 501c6 corporation. That was something, a lot of context kind of over this 10-year period. So I'm pleased to make that announcement. We work with an inquiry-based research model, and that's how we orient ourselves basically to the work that we're doing, and it's very collaborative. So I'm here in part to make the announcement, not so much as a cheerleader, but to invite relationship and input. This is a cultural project from the standpoint of fit. How well does our work fit with the societal, with the civic needs and again, along the lines of the happiness, health, and well-being of the whole. Thanks again for the time. Best wishes.
Hi. Hi. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Frida Cathcart. I'm the District Director representing Roanoke City on the Soil and Water Conservation Board. And I'm here today because I think this is some really important information for Council to be aware of. There's a surprising blocker for U.S. cities tapping into state or federal funding, and that's grant writing. As Bloomberg has reported, local governments who lack the capacity or bandwidth to undergo lengthy and complex grant application processes could be left out of historic investments in local economies, infrastructure, and environmental justice. The Biden administration's landmark legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act, Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and CHIPS Act, has opened up trillions of dollars, yet many of the 90,000 municipalities and tribal governments in the United States are struggling to complete the required paperwork to assess these funds. Historically, larger cities with dedicated resources have dominated these opportunities, leaving smaller cities at a disadvantage. This impacts things like transit projects, where the disparity worsens, and in existing inequality, large cities are more likely to already have a functioning transit system, while smaller cities struggle to get the startup funds they need to launch new and much needed mobility projects. And a former chief administrator officer for Jackson, Mississippi was quoted as saying, "We really, really needed the funds, but we didn't have the competency, we didn't have the capacity to be able to apply for it." Now, it's my understanding that Roanoke City currently has no grant writers on staff. I don't know if that's true. I think that there used to be one. Grant writers make an average of around $50,000 a year. I've heard where there are people, volunteers, that are going to go to Charlottesville sometime this fall to learn how to be grant writers. That's laudable, but not going to do it. This is something that's going to make a big difference for Roanoke's economy and well-being. You can't rely on volunteers to navigate this grant writing. Our board that I serve on, the Blue Ridge Soil and Water Conservation Board, we have 4 staff people that help us. 2 of them are dedicated to going out in the field, evaluating if things will meet the grants of which we allocate, and help the people to be successful with their grants. And we've got nobody dedicated to that. I mean, there's a reason why Roanoke was designated earlier this year as the poorest small city in Virginia. We are leaving funds on the table that rightly should be coming to us. But they can't come to us if we don't go for it and apply for it and bring that money home. And I spoke to you last month about an opportunity with the EPA. I followed up, tried to make an appointment with the manager. I sent a follow-up email on August 6th saying urgent, I wanted to talk about collaborating on this grant. I've received no response. And that's really concerning. And I know that summer's a busy time, and I know that people are strapped to them. But we need to have a comprehensive solution for this, and part of this is having the staff to be able to do what needs to be done. That's why I allocated so hard this past General Assembly to get $3 million of technical assistance to all the districts in Virginia, because we were getting money that was coming to us too fast to be able to get it onto the ground. We said we need to staff up. Roanoke needs to staff up. And I just wanted to flag for you also my concerns about the Office of Sustainability. It's woefully understaffed. It used to have 3 staff members, and now it's been downsized to only 1. And you compare this to Richmond that has 12 times the staffing that our office does. You compare it to Charlottesville, which has 6 staff members. How can we be responding to a climate emergency? How can we implement our climate action plan if we don't staff up, have the staff to be able to identify the problems, and then we need staff to be able to go and get the money, state and federal money that's been allocated to address these problems? There needs to be a comprehensive solution to that. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I'm trying to do the best that I can to flag when these opportunities come up, to say, hey, I can do some assistance on that, but I'm a volunteer too. I get no salary. I don't have staff dedicated to me and what I do. I can only try and do the connections. So, thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. I was going to ask the mayor if we could have Dr. Patton respond to you.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, the City of Portsmouth has a strategic projects and grant manager who will be presenting today in our presentations. We have a team of people that Mrs. Ferguson works with, Helen Ferguson, and she and her team have secured numerous grants in the short time that I've been here, only about 86 days. I'm not aware of Mrs. Cathcart trying to contact me, but I will put Mrs. Cathcart with Mrs. Ferguson so that she could understand and communicate with her in the broad grants that this city is writing and receiving.
So, okay, so you're good. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, that concludes hearing of citizens.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. We now move down to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the members of City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussions of the items. If discussion is desired, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. I need a motion on
Move
that.
this consent agenda. Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds. And Mayor Lee.
Aye. And the consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Item six is petitions and communications. Item number 5 with public hearings, we have none. Item 6 is petitions and communications. 6.1 is the acceptance and appropriation of the Victims Witness Program grant from the Department of Criminal Justice Services. There's a resolution.
Move the resolution. Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, could you please read the title paragraph?
Yes, sir. A resolution authorizing the acceptance of the Victim Witness Grant from the Department of Criminal Justice Services and authorizing the execution and filing of appropriate documents to obtain such funds.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion by members of council? I'm always pleased to recognize our Commonwealth Attorney who's here, Commonwealth Mr. Don Caldwell, and a member of his staff. Forgive me, I need your name, but thank you all for being here. Any discussion from members of council? All right, hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Aye.
And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the resolution passes. Thank you all. There's a budget ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
Madam Clerk, can you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the Department of Criminal Justice Services for the Victim Witness Assistance Program, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2024-2025 grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
All right, is there any discussion on members of council? All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb.
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Aye.
Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. Thank you. Item number 2 is the appropriation of funds as reimbursed to the city treasurer as a licensed agency of the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles, DMV Select Program. There's a budget ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
All right, Madam Clerk, can you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the U.S. Department of Transportation through the Commonwealth of Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles to be a licensed agent called a DMV Select Office, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2024-2025 General Fund and Grant Fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussions by members of council? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. Thank you. We're now down to item seven on the agenda. Comments of the interim city manager, and I'm pleased to recognize interim city manager, Ms. Lydia Patton, to introduce the briefings that we have.
Thank you so much, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. We have two briefings today. I will announce the first one, followed upon its completion, the second. Chief Booth and his senior staff are here today from the Police Department, and they will discuss the public safety statistics year-to-date in our city. Several promising strategies that are reducing violence in our community will be highlighted. Chief Booth.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council. So Dr. Patton made me say public safety review.
We'll leave it at that.
But what I most want to talk to you all today is the promising success we are seeing and the strategies we are seeing with reducing gun violence in our community. And you all know, I've been here for about 10 months now, and working in this line of work for about 30 years. One of the things that I am most passionate about is how do we as the police work with the community to reduce gun violence. And I'm going to share some things with you that I think we're seeing a tremendous amount of success. But let me say this, anytime that there's a loss of life in our community or someone is struck by a bullet in our community is one time too many. All right, the only time I would ever be happy if I stand up here and say that we've had 0 people shot and killed, 0 people shot in our community. That's the only time that I've ever had any happiness on this. But we are seeing some success, and I think it's most important that we share that because we don't always as a community do a great job of getting that success out there, right? We, as a police department, we put press releases out anytime someone is shot and killed or harmed in our community on many levels, but sometimes we don't always compare that to the year prior. And I think it's important in a community that has worked so hard on the problem of gun violence here. When I was down south, I would look at Roanoke and I was like, man, how collaborative are they forming the Gun Violence Prevention Commission, coming together as a group to focus with evidence-based solutions. And I think we're seeing a lot of that pay off right now. So I'll kind of dive into that. Henry, you listening? I expect a positive story in Roanoke Rambler tomorrow. You got me on that, Henry? You can screenshot it if you want. You heard me.
More importantly, Luke.
Who else? Yeah.
Luke right there in the front.
Luke too, right,
Yeah,
Luke?
Luke too.
All right.
Yeah.
So Luke's just nonchalant, like whatever. I'm still not going to give you a good story. All right. So when we look at our fatal shootings, comparing 2023 to 2024, we went into the year with a goal for 2024 of a 10% decrease, right? So the baseline on that would have been in 2023, at this point in time, okay, to the beginning of September, we had 22 gun-related homicides. Our target was to have 20, all right? That was me at my most cautiously. I was like, all right, well, we're going to at least have a 10% down, all right? And then when you look at our actual numbers, we have had 6. So when you look at 6 compared to 22 in 2023, That is a 65% reduction in gun-related homicides to date. 65% reduction in gun-related homicides to date. When we look at our non-fatal shootings, all right, same, 2023 to 2024. All right, our baseline in 2023, 44 during this time period. Target was 40, and thus far, January to August, we had 15. So that's going to be a 55% reduction in non-fatal shootings year to date compared to the same date range last year, January through August. These are going to be the overall incidents, kind of a busy slide there plotted out for 2023 for our GSW and homicides, our GSWs and homicides. You see it's color-coded. Just kind of wanted to put that to show the state of our city. As you can see, a concentration of those, sadly, are in our northwest quadrant of the city. And here we are year to date, okay? Well, this is actually through the 18th of August. All right, this is the data that he presented through the 18th of August. So some of the things that we're doing, the city was doing a whole lot of things, but some of the things that we've been doing over the last 10 months that are helping us to get some of these results. I'm a firm believer in accountability. We always talk about accountability, right? Everybody has a boss. I answer to Dr. Patton, who answers to you all. We have to have accountability. That's what works. Sometimes in police departments, we're very busy. We have a lot of things going on. But what works in policing is everybody has to have ownership and accountability for something. So the stratified policing model is what, when I had my researchers from Radford University, the same ones that came to Danville and helped me build a model specifically for that community, they came in, they looked at data, they did a deep dive, they worked with us to form an accountability model that best suits the Star City. So they did an analysis of 3 years of crime data, and they identified 4 areas within the city that had been disproportionately affected by violent crime and property crime. Each of these areas is now assigned to a captain to act as that place manager and direct law enforcement as well as non-law enforcement services in that area. Select area of downtown was 1. The Belmont area was 2. The Hunts Lincoln Terrace was 3. And Lansdowne was 4. And when you look at that heat map, all right, so those 3 years of data, those show the areas that disproportionately produce violent crime incidents and crime incidents. So as a smart police department using evidence-based strategies, that's where we most need to be. That's where we most need to be focused on. That's where we most need to be policing. And that's where we most need to be developing relationships. So those captains report back to me on a monthly basis, and they tell me exactly what they've done. Their lieutenants, their mid-level managers are given responsibility for each one of the zones. We've heard zone 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are our quadrants. They coincide with southeast, southwest, northeast, and northwest. And their responsibility to me is to tell me what you all are doing with your community to reduce crime and engage the community. So they have skin in the game. And these are just some general overall strategies. I didn't want to take too much of your time, but I just want to hit a couple. Community policing. We know that it's all about relationships. So whether you see us walking in a community, whether you see an after-school program, whether you see a neighborhood forum, which many of you all on council and the mayor have been to, it's a way for us to hear the voices of the community, develop relationships, and focus on the problems that most affect them. One of the things I'm most excited about for us is a group violence intervention strategy. And this is something that, with the help of our Attorney General's office, who provided the state funding for us, we've been able to build out that model. We have a GVI coordinator named Eric Mayo, and what that is, that allows us to focus not only law enforcement resources, but non-law enforcement resources on the very small percentage of people that commit violence in our community. We don't just have everybody running around here randomly shooting folks. It's usually a very small percentage. And once we identify them, we actually give them the opportunity to say, hey, You can change your ways, and we'll connect you with service providers, or we're going to work with our great partner. Where did my man Don go? Don left. We're going to work with the Commonwealth's attorney and the U.S. attorney to bring the full force of prosecutorial might on you. And many times, sometimes, they'll actually leave the city, right, Adam?
They had our first two left the city, Chief.
So, we don't want to bully anybody. But if you're shooting people in our community, if you're hurting people in our community, you got to go. And like Deputy Chief Puckett said, when about 5 to 6 people show up at your door, law enforcement, prosecutors, social service providers, and give you these options, sometimes they're like, you know what? Maybe Roanoke isn't the place for me. So I hate to say that, but maybe they can go somewhere else because we need to keep our folks safe. And I think the only way that you get results like what we're standing up here and talking about is when you try some things that are a little bit different. And I think GVI is one of the things that are working for us. Reset, you all know about our Reset, our rapid engagement support in the event of trauma. One of the things that I love most when I came to Roanoke, we had that permanent Reset unit that goes out there to our communities after they are harmed. Whether it is a homicide, whether it's a non-fatal shooting, whether it's a police action that's harmed somebody, our Reset goes out there and is deployed. We used Reset a few weeks ago at Valley View Mall when we had, and it was an erroneous incident. There was never shots fired. It was kids beating on metal signs. But there was a level of trauma. There was, folks were scared. It was all over social media. So Reset went out there and they worked with their folks to educate them on what happened and provide services if needed. Whole of government approach, I think Roanoke does a great job with working with the communities as far as to increase lighting. Fed Up is such a great partner to help us work with families that are impacted by gun violence, and we have a robust relationship with our code enforcement. And then hotspot policing. So those 4 areas that I talked about, we spend more time there, and we do things like walking patrol and bike patrols, and we have our steady blue lights on there. All of that works to reduce crime. Some of the operational things that we've done that I think is really paying off for us with non-fatal shootings. Before, when we would have a non-fatal shooting, many times a detective wouldn't even respond to the scene. So if you weren't going to die, you wouldn't have a detective respond to the scene. Now we send a whole team of folks out there. Because we know we have to identify that suspect early on, gather that evidence so we can do an effective prosecution on that. So I offer that a lot of these things, working together with many of the things that the city was already doing, is having some pretty miraculous results. So that's good news, and that's what I present before you today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody have any questions?
Chief, thank you for this
Yes, sir.
great update. And thank you for acknowledging the work that we've done as a city for the last 5 years to put an infrastructure in place, to build partnerships, to be able to pilot things and try things. We're seeing the fruit of all of that. In addition to what you've shared, we have good partners with Carillion with their hospital-based violence interruption program. We have countless community partners who are doing mentoring and after-school. RCPS did their inaugural Community Builders program with 8th graders this year, which was very successful. And our Youth and Gang Violence Prevention Team, which is working with some of the highest risk youth and their families. One of the things I've noticed in the data you've been sharing at the Gun Violence Prevention Commission meetings is that we're seeing a higher number of cases closed by arrest. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that has something to do with this trust building that you're doing.
So certainly, I think that any time we're engaging our community, they trust us more, they're more likely to talk to us, and we're more likely to close those cases. You know, I used to kind of get made fun of a lot down south when I was doing, because it's a true story, when I was doing community walks and I was out there doing community engagement on a regular basis, and a lot of folks would make fun of me. And I was like, if you don't build trust in the community, people are not going to call you when something bad happens. You know, the CSI is one thing. We do NIBIN and we do ballistics imaging, and having detectives go out early on to a scene, that is a thing, make no mistake. But if people don't trust you, they're not going to call you, and they're not going to provide you with information. So I would argue the more effective, depthful community engagement you're doing, the higher your clearance rate goes. And I've seen it time and time again.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody? Any other comments?
One brief question, comment. I remember watching TV and the news and reading about Danville and the Danville Police Department and all the things you got accomplished. I wasn't here, but I want to commend this council and the city staff for hiring you, Scott.
Thanks, sir.
Chief, you've done a great job, and it was kind of a dream that we would move, once our chief got promoted, to someone who, you know, had this in his bones and would come here and look at us anew and figure out what we can do. Sure is good having you in town.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, the second presentation is the Northwest Roanoke Heat Resilient Project. It is a group of citizens who've worked together through community-based organizations on a grant proposal that will be submitted to the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, for the Community Change Grant. The group and the City of Roanoke have received technical assistance from the EPA to pursue this funding opportunity. The strategy for this grant is to strengthen capacity building for individuals in Northwest Roanoke and community-based organizations while increasing governmental collaboration. Mayor and members of City Council, the request to the EPA for this grant is in its maximum amount, $20 million. And there are 4 cities who moved forward with their proposals, and the City of Roanoke is one of them. I would like to introduce Mr. Brad Stevens, Graduate Research Assistant at Virginia Tech Institute for Policy and Governance, and he's very close to finishing his PhD. He is representing the group and will make the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Dr. Patton. It makes me feel good that you think I'm close to finishing. Thank you. Mayor Lee, Vice Mayor Cobb, members of City Council, it's an honor to be able to address you here today. As was noted, Brad Stevens. I'm both a resident of Roanoke and a doctoral researcher down with the Institute for Policy and Governance at Tech, and it is my privilege to be able to share about the Northwest Roanoke Heat Resilience Project today. So, first I want to talk a little bit about, kind of just share why this is an issue, right? So, let's start just very clearly that within the city of Roanoke, there are places that are 15 degrees warmer than other places. So when you're seeing WDBJ or wherever, say what the temperature is, recognize that there's a wide range that can be up to 15 degrees difference across the spectrum here. Additionally, we know that there are homes, we've measured homes, particularly in Lansdowne, where indoor air temperature has been 20 degrees warmer than the outdoor air temperature in the heat of summer. We know that this was measured at Lansdowne, but we also know that this is an issue throughout our community with those that do not have access to air conditioning or struggle to pay for air conditioning. We also know that there's a strong correlation between these heat vectors and increased violence, increased visits to the emergency department, as well as a number of other wellness impacts. We also, as you can see from the map here, you can recognize that these warmer areas are much more connected to our already socially vulnerable places. In addition to this, and this is always my favorite thing, is that they suggest that with climate change going the way it is, it's going to feel like Tuscaloosa, Alabama and Roanoke in 25 to plus years. So we're going to have to do something about that given these things. So I will say that the EPA has put out this really quite innovative grant opportunity as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. It's unlike anything else I've ever worked on. It's got a deadline in November, but it's a rolling deadline, and they're offering these grants up as they come in. So we're aiming to submit on September 9th here next week. We will expect to hear back within about a month after that. If we do not receive it, there is expected to be an opportunity to resubmit based on the notes that they give us. From what we hear, we're very hopeful that that won't be necessary, but this would be a 3-year term starting in January that we'd be looking at here. Again, as noted, this would be a $20 million award. And again, innovatively, this was mandated from the federal government that it include a community-based organization as part of the lead partnership of this. We've taken a much broader view, and we've got several involved, but we do have the Hope Center as lead community-based organization alongside the city, which would be the lead partner, institutional partner on this. And importantly, as we'll note in a moment here, this has to address both climate adaptation and pollution alleviation here, aimed at underprivileged communities. So this has been quite a process to get here before you now. Starts in March, but really this goes back further than this. We're building off of a $1 million NSF grant that focused on heat resilience in Roanoke. Theo Lim, who you may have met before, was working on that. If I look like Theo, that's because I'm replacing him in here in front of you in some ways. But we were lucky enough to get awarded technical assistance from the EPA for this. And so we had a team of world-renowned architects, landscape architects, and engineers come in to work with us on things. We held a charrette with around 50 folks there to help work through designs. We've done a number of other community engagement methods along the way to kind of prepare for this. And we've now received our final documentation from that team and are preparing that final submission to the EPA at this point. So enough talking about the grant itself, we can talk about what's actually in it here. So we're looking at this from the perspective of 3 physical capital projects. So we've got a resilience center with the Hope Center, we've got an outdoor resilience center and reprogramming of McCadden Park, and we've got the air conditioning and indoor air quality standards through electric stoves at Lansdowne. I'll talk a little bit more about each of those infrastructure pieces in just a moment. But we, as much as we recognize the very strong capacity that's given to us through that physical infrastructure, we also know that we need to care for the human and social capital pieces here as well if we want lasting change. And so that's where we bring in both the Roanoke method, which is what we think is a relatively unique collaborative governance structure that kind of underpins the entire project, and then a community science piece on top of this, which will allow residents, youth, and adults to kind of measure and track their own environmental space as we look ahead here. So just as a brief refresher here for those that are wondering about collaborative governance, we're looking at this from the perspective that the city, our private partners and nonprofits, the university, none of us can do these things alone when we can do together. But working together requires difficult things. It requires power sharing, thinking about how we make decisions, thinking about consensus, thinking about transparency and values and how we work together. And so that's really the underpinning of all of this, is that I want to take a moment, and if my collaborators here will raise your hands here so you guys can see who's here. Come on now, don't be shy, folks. These folks have done incredibly hard work to get us here, and in terms of giving of themselves, and we'll recognize who they are in just a moment here. But even going back further, the community has done incredible work to get here. So I mentioned that there is an NSF grant focused on heat resilience. We've held a number of community meetings here, a number of participants involved in different kinds of community engagement practice. Perhaps most impactfully from our perspective, we've had 8 high school students who've gone through a number of hours, as you can see, over 1,900 hours of training in community planning and engagement work. This has taken a number of different forms here, so you can see some of our young people participating in a charrette. You can see them gathering survey data at a public event. You can see them speaking to the Roanoke Housing Authority Board. You can also see some of the public events we had where we invited those architects and others to walk the community with us to recognize the power of the projects being involved in here. And I'm sorry, Doug's not here, but we should also recognize the value of the arts in this. We've worked to engage the arts and appreciate the work of folks like Jane and others that have been able to bring forward these voices that we might not be able to hear except through the arts, and bring power that we would not be able to necessarily capture otherwise. So all of that has led to this potential now where we have this collaborative structure with 5 community partners, including the city, the Hope Center, statutory partner, but also Melrose Rugby, the Housing Authority, and a community science program that all have equal voice at a table in decisions about what goes forward with this project. My role and our role with Virginia Tech Institute for Policy and Governance is really to provide capacity building for each of those groups, that they can best engage in these processes and best do the work necessary as they can. But each of these organizations is doing really powerful work, and we're hoping that through this we can build the capacity for this to continue moving forward in this community, but also hopefully building a model that we can use in other places as well. So about these physical infrastructure projects here, we have the Hope Center here, which has been operating as a resilience hub for a while now. This would vastly increase their capacity to do that work. You can see this is a 1.5-story building we're looking at here. It would be a net zero building, so carbon neutral, would not produce any carbon for the environment at that point, would have state-of-the-art battery backups, solar panels, everything else to be able to operate in the event of an emergency. And so the idea of a resilience hub would be that this would be a place that operates as a community center for day-to-day use, building a network of folks, and then when an emergency strikes, you'd be able to go here to be provided services as necessary in that moment. So instead of going somewhere where you don't know, you're going somewhere with people that you know and trust to provide those emergency services to you. We're also talking about McCadden Park here, which would have, as I mentioned before, be essentially an outdoor resilience hub. They'd have the city's first splash pad in it, as well as an innovative play space. A number of other upgrades, including an amphitheater, upgraded playing fields, a number of new tree plantings. This would, again, vastly increase the air quality of the surrounding neighborhood, as well as produce an incredible place for recreation for folks of all ages there. And then we have Lansdowne, in which we, again, be providing air conditioning for every unit in Lansdowne. We'd be providing electric cooking. For those of you that don't know, a large number of those people that have asthma get so because of gas stoves. So this will replace the gas stoves in Lansdowne and provide mechanical ventilation, because as of right now, there is no mechanical ventilation in those Lansdowne units. So this would provide a capacity that would mitigate that. What we're seeing right here, this 20-degree difference between the inside temperature and the outside temperature in these units. So you can see what these community science students found was that when the air cooled down outside, the air in the buildings in Lansdowne did not cool down. So it was above 85 degrees, close to 90 degrees on these days. When you can see that's a high of only around 90, much less if it goes higher than that, as we've seen in recent weeks here. So again, this community science piece here, we'd look to empower young people as well as adults to recognize and measure the impacts of what's happening in their community, as well as be able to communicate that and build consensus around it in the rest of the community. And there'd be a number of salaries attached to this as well. So we'd have a grants administrator that's coming from the city here, as well as a number of capacity pieces in our partnering organizations, such that the hope is that at the end of this 3 years, we would have built the capacity and sufficiency that these organizations would be able to continue to work at the level and the great capacity they've been doing for the 3 years ongoing into the future here. But again, this is the great folks that are doing the actual work. It's my privilege to be able to work with them, and just want to thank you all for your time today.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Is that the real Mac McCadden back there?
I can neither confirm nor deny that is the real Mac McCadden back there.
He used to be up here on the dais with us, and he caused us a tremendous amount of trouble. But be that as it may, what a great project this is, and with his mom and his name, we'll have to share it with him. What a wonderful thing to do and to try to gain. And it appears from what Dr. Patton has said that you all are well on your way and are ranked well. You just have to promise me that you and some of the others will remain in charge and not let Mr. McCadden run this program. I'm going to catch a lot of grief after this, but that's okay.
Thank you.
Great job. Wonderful
you.
job. And thanks for I'm a Hokie, thanks for the help from Virginia Tech.
Absolutely.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I want to thank everyone who raised their hands back there. Just seeing some of the on-the-ground work already in McCadden Park, in the Hope Center, at Lansdowne, with all of the research that's been done, it's just been paving the way for it. I just had two questions. I love the rendering of the new Hope Center. Will that be located near or where the current Hope Center is in a new location? I imagine it's going to be near that hub. You may not know that yet.
Yes, we're hoping it will be there on 11th Street where it is now, but we will see, but that's
Okay.
the plan.
Well, that's very exciting, very exciting. The other is, if we get this, three years, right? And I think it's really well thought out in terms of how much to invest in each of these areas. One of the big questions we'll want to be asking as council is how do we sustain this going forward? I know the organizations are asking that same question because when you plant trees, when you put in a splash pad, when you build a new building, when you're retrofitting older homes, we have to think about how we sustain that and what might be ahead in the future. So do you have, I'm sure you've given some thought to this, but I'm thinking more from our perspective as a lead partner in this. What do we need to be thinking about proactively beyond 3 years to help sustain this work?
Absolutely. So I should say that we've been working closely. Big thanks to Helen, who's been instrumental in this, as well as Katie Slusher from Parks and Rec, who couldn't be here today. But Katie has provided from the parks perspective what she thinks they can provide moving forward in terms of maintenance on the parks. We have built into the grant the idea that there will be grant writing support probably from 18 months on for our nonprofit partners to allow them to continue to raise funds. So that's a part of the capacity building, but a specific part would be in terms of identifying and pursuing those sustaining funds at that point. But and I think, there are open questions in terms of what level that sustainment needs to be at for some of the things, but the idea would be that we would be able to identify as much of that as possible from outside of city funds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm looking at, and I just want to piggyback on what the Vice Mayor said, because I am that person who looks at sustainability. I'm always saying, once you start something, how do you maintain it and have it for the future? I'm looking at the salary piece, and I know it's for 3 years, and I'm looking at all the agencies, and especially with the city, and I see where it says the grant administrator. Is that a actual grant administrator that will be hired, or one that already has a position, and such as Helen, who's also the chief strategist officer?
Yes,
Will she actually take on the title and be exclusively for grants, or is it just part of your functions?
Good afternoon, Councilmember Moon Reynolds.
How are you?
For this particular grant, we did write in for someone not knowing what all my additional responsibilities may be. With this particular grant, because we are doing construction, there are requirements by the federal government such as Davis-Bacon and BABA. So this would be a particular position to make sure that we can meet all those requirements and add that capacity to our nonprofits as well to make sure that they can meet all those requirements. So this person would really be honing in on making sure all the permits are filed correctly, making sure that we met all those additional federal requirements, and we didn't miss a beat in that, because we don't want to be penalized in the process of that.
Okay, because that's one of the things that I've continued to voice an opinion on, is that the city exclusively needs a grant compliance office. Once upon a time, there were 3 people that worked exclusively on grants, and then it was dumbed down to eventually eliminate it. And I know we have that as part of your functions, of some of the functions within the administration, but I just wanted to see if there's truly a grant administrator who is strictly focused on that, and you answered that. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. This is a really big project, so like I said, we don't want to miss a beat.
And that's why I was bringing that up, because it appears to be a great opportunity with that amount of money coming into the city to do some great work. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, Mrs. Ferguson is our Strategic Projects and Grants Manager. She works with all departments who have a designated person within those departments that she is working with and collaborating with. So coming here, we did not have a designated, although she worked in the city manager's office. She is now the official, working with all departments, overseeing all grants, and her strategic mind, and I underscore that, she is the new Strategic Projects and Grants Manager for the City of Roanoke. She'll even be working with outside entities as it relates to grants and pursuing grants. And she was doing some of that previous to my coming, but in just a little small window. And now she has a panoramic view of the entire city and how to lead and pursue grants.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's good to put it publicly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you done, Ms.?
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you.
Mr. Boss?
Just a brief comment. I really wanted to point out the Lansdowne upgrades as something that's really great. You don't necessarily think of that as the first thing when you think of an urban heat island and heat problems, but definitely an issue, and I'm really grateful that y'all took that into account. And hopefully this does get to go forward, because that'd be a great upgrade for the Lansdowne residents.
Absolutely. All right. Ms. Doctor, Ms. Trish Wright.
If you did for Bev, you can for me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a quick question. So we're excited. It looks really good. And I may have missed this, but when did you say that they would determine whether or not we were eligible for the grant?
So they have been turning folks around in about a month.
In about a month?
Yeah.
So you will know something in perhaps a month whether or not we receive the grant or not. And I agree with Ms. Moon Reynolds, because when you talk about the grants, and we've seen the grants, and just like the ARPA funding, once it goes away, then, you know, the members of council have to try to figure out how to incorporate this into their budget. So, you know, I'm sure they're going to be anxious whenever that time comes. The mayor and I, and some of us may not be here, but I'm sure they will be anxious to hear what those numbers are going to look like, because certainly we would want to sustain something as important as these efforts are. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Patton.
You're welcome, sir.
Dr. Patton, does that conclude your briefing?
That concludes the briefing presentations, but then I have some comments of items I'd like to call to your attention, if you're ready. On the comments of the interim city manager.
See, yes. Yeah, I'm gonna get that. I was looking for her comments again. I'll see it. Okay. Yeah. Well, let me go to some of these action items first. Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, I'm just so caught up in this grant there. We're on item A.
Yes, sir.
Okay. On page 15. Acceptance and appropriation of FY24 and FY25 BDOT street maintenance revenue versus budget allocation. There's a resolution.
Move the resolution, Mayor.
Yeah, the one's full.
Mayor, I believe that item has been pulled.
It has.
Okay. Yeah, I got a notice on that. I didn't know which one. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It'll be coming
Thank
back
you.
at the next meeting.
Dr. Patton, you have anything to say on that?
It will come back at our September the 16th meeting. Our finance will be working with the municipal law, and it will come back.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item B, which is the acceptance and appropriations of Virginia Department of Fire Programs Conference and Educational Assistance Grant. There's a resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, can you read the title paragraph?
Yes, sir. A resolution authorizing the acceptance of the 2025 Conference and Education Assistance Grant to the City of Roanoke from the Virginia Department of Fire Programs, and authorizing the execution and filing of appropriate documents to obtain such funds.
All right, is there any discussion among council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Mayor Lee?
Aye, and the resolution passes. Thank you. There's a budget order.
Move the ordinance.
All All right, Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the Virginia Department of Fire Programs for the Conference and Education Assistance Grant Program, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2024-2025 grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
Thank you. Is there any discussion among council? Seeing or hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. Thank you. Item C is authorization of an encroachment permit for Greater Roanoke Transit Company, GRTC, and Valley Metro Bus Shelter located in the right-of-way at 3101 Cove Road Northwest on the north side of the intersection of Gulfside Avenue Northwest. Where is that?
That's right
Garden
across from
Prayer.
Garden of Prayer.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the exact address of the church.
I was going to say, isn't that his
Okay. Garden of Prayer, I wonder what that is. All right, there's an ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Is there any discussion with council? Oh, I'm sorry, read the title paragraph, man.
Yes, I
Madam
will.
Clerk.
An ordinance allowing a bus shelter encroachment requested by the Greater Roanoke Transit Company doing business as Valley Metro, GRTC, into the public right-of-way adjacent to property located at 3101 Cove Road Northwest, bearing official tax map number 2480158, which bus shelter will be located within the city right-of-way upon certain terms and conditions, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
All right, any discussion among council members?
Mr. Volleson has a question there.
Ms. Foster.
I was just looking at the diagram of where this bus shelter is going to be, and on that side of the street, it looks like there's no sidewalk except for what we're going to be adding. I know we're not huge fans of sidewalks to nowhere, so I wanted to see if there's any reason why we're only doing that little piece, or if there's a way to extend the sidewalk.
I'm not sure, but I know that discussion has already been had. I'm not sure what happened, but I think the previous pastor tried to get sidewalks there, and something happened. I don't know who the city manager is.
That's on, that discussion has been held with.
Yeah, I know, multiple
with
times.
Mr. Ross regarding that.
I don't know why.
And with the pastor's son.
And
been
pastor,
up
before he
discussing.
passed away, tried to get
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So, but I still can't answer that question on how that got there.
I just know that the conversation has been had, and maybe there's a reason they couldn't, because it's been, that conversation's been had at least twice. So
About
maybe we can
putting-
follow up as what the reasoning was that they couldn't get one, but
Okay.
thank you for bringing that to the city manager's attention.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion on that?
No, not on that one, Mayor, but every time you bring up bus shelters, we have to go back to Vice Mayor and find out the status on the others.
Well, we're making good progress on the list. We have a very active list of shelters that are going into place. And we get an update, I think we'll probably get our next update at the September GRTC board meeting, and I'll be glad to share that update with you all at the council meeting too.
That would be great. Anything positive on the one at Walmart or?
No, but we are,
I'm just holding out
we're,
hope that it'll
well,
happen before
what we
December.
discussed at the last GRTC meeting was, if we don't, we're going back again to the owners of that property to see if they're in concurrence, because all the other partners are. And if they're not in concurrence, looking at a potential Plan B, a different location that is still in proximity to Walmart that's amenable.
What about the one that Mr. Stovall, remember when he was Assistant City Manager, said that would be that loop? Is that still an option or no?
I would have to go back and look.
Yeah, because that's where
But
I thought it was going.
it's in that proximity.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Well, I'm going to be meeting tomorrow with Marcus Brown, the pastor's son, over here on Cove Road, at the church on Cove Road, to to ask him about that. That's pretty interesting here. All right, well, if there ain't no further discussions, Madam Clerk, we can call a roll on this,
Yes, sir.
on this item.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Mayor Lee?
Aye, and the ordinance passes. All right, I'm pleased to recognize the city manager for any comments that she may have.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council, I have a few updates. Parks and Recreation Master Plan update. The community outreach of the Master Plan update has been scheduled for September. The consultant team of Barry Dunn will be in Roanoke conducting intensive engagement from Wednesday, September the 25th through Friday, September 27th. During this visit, the consultant will interview city leadership, conduct four small focus group conversations, and host 2 large public community meetings. City council members and city management will be contacted to schedule time during the leadership interview windows. The online survey will be open for response through Monday, September 30th, 2024. A separate statistical valid citywide survey will be mailed directly to a demographic representative sample of residents in September as well. The engagement meetings will be held on Wednesday, September 25th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. in the Belmont Library, and Thursday, September 26th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. in Envision Center. The next is an update on the Wasenia Bridge update. Archer Weston has installed the steel rebar for the first set of Y piers. Anticipated concrete placement for the Y piers is scheduled for the week of September this week, the 2nd. Installation of deep piles for Pier 3 is planned for the week of September 9th. The 3rd Street Station, this was a request that came before you, Council, from a citizen in regarding smoking in that station. Valley Metro will be implementing a new designated smoking area policy today, September the 3rd. There will be designated smoking areas outside the station. Additionally, there will be cigarette collectors along the railings. So that's a report back to you from a citizen request. The Fishburne Perk Coffee Shop, owners of the Fishburne Perk Coffee Shop have informed city staff that they have received construction permits and have begun work on the cottage. Lastly, but not least, I'd like to have Mrs. Carol Corbin to stand, please. Mrs. Corbin is the City of Roanoke's Communications Manager, and she recently received that new title. I'd like to recognize her for her exceptional work on the State of the City address. Her dedication and commitment to delivering a comprehensive and an insightful presentation have not gone unnoticed. Mrs. Corbin put in countless hours to ensure that the address not only captured the spirit of our community, but also clearly communicated the important changes and initiatives we are all undertaking. Her attention to detail and passion for the city of Roanoke is truly commendable. I'd like to thank Mrs. Corbin for your smart work, not hard work, and outstanding contribution to making the city of Roanoke, the city address, a success, while shining a Star City star on our mayor at his last State of the City address. I'd also like to say, as a newcomer, and I've seen so many states of the city in my 40-plus years, I suggested to her, let's consider having a video for the mayor's last presentation, and I hope it goes on beyond the mayor. And there were comments not from her to say, We've never done that. And I said, well, let's just think about doing it. Not only did Mrs. Corbin receive it, but she reached out to the city of Portsmouth, of which I have orchestrated so many State of the Cities for mayors in that city, and talked with the team that put it together. So that's commendable, not to just say, we never did it that way and we're not going to do it. But she went beyond, and we received so many comments. So we recognize her and commend her, and in addition, she is now the photographer. If you notice her camera, where's your camera? She has a camera, which she always had, and she will not be taking cell phone pictures. She will be taking official,
Real pictures.
real pictures. Let's commend Mrs. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl, personally, for what you did and the time that goes into that, the time that you spent on that, and the practice and helping me break down some words there. I appreciate that, putting all that together. You did a great job, and I've always appreciated you, not only with the State of the City, but throughout the course of most of my tenure when you came in for your word construction and the work that you do. So appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right.
You're welcome.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to thank RVTV who assisted with the video.
Yes,
So I wanted to thank them for that as well.
Yes.
That's all.
Thank
right.
you.
Are they in the back?
They're in the back
They're
right
in the
now.
back. Hey, guys!
They were excited, she said.
It was very good. I must say, Vice Mayor and I were talking about, we got to get a copy of that just to have it. It was
Yeah.
exceptionally done.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that conclude, Dr.?
I'm finished, thank you.
Okay. City Attorney didn't have any comments. Reports of committees, none. Unfinished business, none. Introduction and consideration of ordinances and resolutions, we have done. Motions and miscellaneous business. Inquiries or comments by the mayor and the members of city council. Are there any
Mayor,
comments?
I would be remiss if I didn't say briefly and thank the city and its staff for helping with the Women's March, celebrating the 19th Amendment. It went over very, very well, and we certainly could not have done that without the assistance of the city and the Parks and Rec staff. So thank you.
Okay. Let me do something I normally don't do, but I just got some emails in between our meetings today, and they wanted me to announce it, and so my administrative assistant brought this to me. I just want to make sure, and it's asked that I let council know. It says, good afternoon, Mayor. I want to invite you and your family, friends, community, and council to an event at the Gainsborough Library this coming Tuesday, September 3rd.
Oh, that's today.
That's today.
It's now.
Hey, welcome to the club. I get them all the time, saying, hey, there's a meeting today. That's welcome to this club. From 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., the Christiansburg Institute Incorporated and the Gainsborough Library are in partnership to talk about the importance of preserving local black history in our area and beyond. And there will be a panel, an informal panel with Mrs. Linda Whitlock Brown, Mr. Charles Price, Mr. Michael Blankenship, and this person, Debbie Sherman Lee.
Debbie Sherman, you know her.
Okay, no relation. Will be a part of the panel. And Mr. Jordan Bell has asked, but he's out of town. So anyway, that's an event right down the street here at the Gainsborough Library at 6 p.m., from 6 to 7 p.m. if you're interested. And let me say that this is not a routine thing that I'm doing. I'm not making these announcements regular. I'll do this because it's just Tuesday instead of Monday. A chicken dinner benefit, Children's Fund for CLIP, Children Learning Program Preventing Crime. tomorrow at, doesn't say, it says at 2 o'clock tomorrow. Half a chicken breast, ring or leg of thigh, potato salad, green beans, mac and cheese, roll, cake. You can call Lisa Davis at 540-739-6175 to order and schedule delivery. Okay, those are the motions and miscellaneous comments. Are there any others? You had something, Joe?
No, for appointments.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, now we're down to vacancies on certain authorities, boards, commissions, and committees appointed by council. And I'm going to call on the vice mayor to give us the names of those people who were appointed or reappointed to boards and commissions. And following that, your approval, following that, I'll ask the council to vote on it, and you vote on it by signaling all nominees. So, Vice Mayor Cobb.
Thank you, Mayor. For the Architectural Review Board, the reappointment of Drew Kepley for a 4-year term. For the Blue Ridge Behavioral Healthcare Board of Directors, the appointment of Josh Orzel to fill the unexpired term of office for Daniel Carnes, ending December 31st, 2026. For the Board of Trustees, City of Roanoke Pension Plan, approval of the appointment of Margaret Lindsay, who is the new Director of Finance for that position. For the Board of Zoning Appeals, the appointment of James Settle to fill the unexpired term of office for Sue Ellen Agresta, ending December 31st, 2024. For Building and Fire Code Board of Appeals, the appointment of Duriel Wood to fill the unexpired term of office for Daniel Colston in Property Management, ending June 30th, 2025. For the City of Roanoke Finance Board, the appointment of Margaret Lindsay, who is the new Director of Finance, to fill the unexpired term as an ex officio member. For the Defined Contribution Board, Margaret Lindsay as the new Director of Finance, because she doesn't have anything else to do. Filling the unexpired term as an ex officio member. Human Services Advisory Board, the appointment of Genesis Ward Jones to fill the unexpired term of office for Sharon Tolliver Hardy, ending November 30th, 2026. And Stacy Wright appointed to fill the unexpired term of office for Seclinda Canty Elliott, ending November 30th, 2026.
Okay.
That's halftime. Okay. Here we go with the second half. Roanoke Arts Commission, Demetrius Johnson to fill the unexpired term of office for Helen Dean. Ms. Dean unfortunately passed away. Roanoke Public Library Board, this is the Roanoke City Public Schools position. Dr. Verlita White nominated Kaylee Kreitzer, Language Arts Specialist, as the replacement, and we affirm that appointment. Roanoke Public Library Board, Anita Price to fill the expired 3-year term of office for Carla Christian, ending June 30th, 2024, so that will be a new 3-year term. Roanoke Redevelopment and Housing Authority, Carolyn Coles, appointed for a new 4-year term following the completion of service of Edward Garner, and Nadira Wright, also for Roanoke Redevelopment Housing Authority to fill the expired term of Andrew Anguiano, who is not seeking reappointment. The Roanoke Valley Juvenile Detention Center Commission, Margaret Lindsay as Director of Finance. We're affirming her appointment. The Towing Advisory Board, Lieutenant Christopher Ramey, we reappoint him to a new 3-year term and with the residency waiver included. And for the expiration of the 3-year term of office for Captain Andrew Pulley is not seeking reappointment. Chief Booth is nominating Captain Andrew Ashby as his replacement, and we affirm that appointment with a residency waiver.
Does that conclude?
That's it.
All right, thank you. All right, you've heard the names that have been placed in nomination. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, and upon your agreement, please let it be known by the saying of all nominees. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Sanchez-Jones. Aye. Mr. Fitzpatrick.
All nominees.
All nominees. Vice Mayor Cobb.
All nominees.
Ms. White Boyd. All nominees. Mr. Volleson.
All nominees.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Before I vote, I do want to state for the record, after consulting with the city attorney on the Building and Fire Code Board of Appeals, Doria Wood. Doria Wood is my son, but I do not have any type of conflict of interest with no personal conflict of interest because there is no financial interest involved, and Doria does not live in a home with me either. So with that said, I am advised that I can vote. So with that stated, I vote all nominees.
Thank you. And Mayor Lee.
All nominees. With that, thank you all. And if there being no further business set forth to come before the council meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
France of liberty, equality, and fraternity, and objected to what he called the privatization of the tower.